Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today because we're tackling a topic that is deeply personal, highly relevant, and honestly, a bit overdue for a massive rethink. We're looking at reimagining the engineering career path in Nigeria. Look, if you're an engineering graduate, a student, or even someone advising young professionals, this explainer is going to completely shift how you view the future. Okay, let's dive into this.
Graduate, wear a hard hat, work on site. You know the drill, right? For so many Nigerian families, engineering isn't just a university course. It's an absolute badge of honor. It's one of the most respected paths a young person can take, and the expectation is just incredibly familiar. The dream is to graduate, throw on that hard hat, step onto a site, maybe join a massive oil company, or jump into construction, power, or telecoms to build a stable, lifelong career. It's a beautiful vision, and for decades, it really was the gold standard of success.
Which brings us to Section 1, the traditional engineering myth.
Now, let me be super clear right out of the gate. That traditional pathway into oil, construction, or manufacturing, it absolutely still exists. We definitely still need engineers building bridges and running refineries. But treating it as the only route to professional relevance, that's exactly where the myth begins. Holding on to this singular vision is actually holding back some incredibly talented minds. We have this common expectation, this sort of university bubble, where you get your degree and seamlessly step right into a rigid traditional corporate role. And this brilliantly illustrates the contrast with reality, because the reality of Nigeria's changing labor market right now is stark. We're looking at really high rates of graduate unemployment and underemployment. We're seeing massive digital disruption across literally every industry, a global energy transition moving away from fossil fuels, and this huge rise in the informal and gig economies. The reality is just practically unrecognizable from the expectation.
Let's look at Section 2, a changing labor market and the skills gap.
You know, when we see grads struggling to find traditional engineering roles, it's so easy to just assume the education system is failing to produce smart people. But that is completely false. The challenge facing Nigerian graduates is absolutely not a lack of intelligence. The real issue is a widening, very specific gap between what the schools are teaching and what modern employers actually need from day one. If you went through a Nigerian engineering program, you know exactly how rigorous it is. You are equipped with incredibly strong theoretical knowledge. You know the math, the physics, the formulas inside out. But what employers are basically crying out for is practical exposure, cutting-edge digital skills, high-level communication ability, hands-on project experience, and a deep understanding of modern workplace dynamics. Employers are constantly pointing out this mismatch. They've got brilliant theorists walking through their doors, but they need practical problem solvers who can actually adapt to digital tools.
And we really just have to be honest about the math here. Traditional sectors like manufacturing, construction, mining, refining, power, transport, and heavy industry, these are historically supposed to absorb all of our engineering graduates. But here is the hard truth. They simply are not expanding fast enough. They just can't. The industrial absorption rate is weak. They cannot possibly take in the sheer volume of highly qualified engineering talent that Nigerian universities pump out every single year. It is literally a mathematical impossibility.
But don't worry, because the news isn't all bad. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is looking at what actually is booming in Nigeria right now. Look at this: FinTech, data analytics, cybersecurity, renewable energy, logistics tech, agri-tech, health tech, technical entrepreneurship. These sectors are massive, they are flush with investment, and they are so desperate for analytical minds. The opportunities haven't disappeared at all, they've just migrated to entirely new industries.
So, as a smart, adaptable graduate, this is the exact moment you have to flip the script. Stop asking, who is hiring engineers? And ask yourself this instead: where can my engineering thinking solve a real Nigerian problem? Seriously, let that sink in for a second. It's no longer about the job title you hold. It's about the specific type of thinking you bring to the table. Where are the massive problems in agriculture or in finance or in healthcare, and how can your uniquely trained brain fix them?
Let's move on to Section 3, the degree's hidden value. We really need to stop looking at an engineering degree as a pair of handcuffs that locks you into one specific industry. Instead, we need to view it for what it truly is, a master key. Your degree represents a universal set of tools. You weren't just taught how to build a bridge or wire a circuit. You were taught a completely different way to process the world around you. Let's walk through your 6 fundamental superpowers, because this is what engineers are uniquely built to do. Number 1, you analyze systems. You see how different parts connect. 2, you break down massive, intimidating problems into solvable pieces. 3, you are completely fearless when it comes to working with numbers and complex data. 4, you inherently understand how to calculate and mitigate risk. 5, you constantly look for ways to improve processes for maximum efficiency. And 6, you design tangible solutions. Guys, these 6 skills are the exact skills required to run a successful FinTech startup, to optimize a supply chain, or to lead a data analytics team. Your training is incredibly valuable in almost every single sector of the Nigerian economy.
Which perfectly sets up Section 4. Diversion is not failure. So the crucial point is,
This requires a massive cognitive free-frame. You might not carry the formal title of engineer on your business card, but that absolutely does not mean you have failed. You are simply applying the strict discipline of engineering to business, technology, finance, operations, or policy. The title changes, sure, but the core competency remains exactly the same. You can take traditional disciplines and evolve them into completely modern roles. For example, a mechanical engineer moving into manufacturing operations, optimizing how a modern tech-driven factory runs. A civil engineer stepping into infrastructure finance, because come on, who better to fund a massive building project than someone who actually understands the structural math? A chemical engineer pivoting into corporate sustainability. An electrical engineer leading the charge in renewable energy startups. Or a petroleum engineer used to dealing with massive amounts of seismic data, transitioning seamlessly into high-level data analytics. These professionals are not leaving engineering. Not at all. They are just taking their highly specialized knowledge and applying it to booming, high-demand markets.
I really want to hammer this home. Career diversion should not be treated as failure. If you take only one thing away from this explainer today, let it be this. Rethinking your career path in a rapidly changing economy is not an abandonment of your hard-earned degree. It is a strategic, highly intelligent pivot. It is the smartest thing you can do. You went to school to learn how to solve complex problems, and pivoting your career to match where the market is going is just you solving the most important problem of all, your own professional future.
So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on. Are you leaving engineering, or are you just applying your skills where Nigeria needs them most today? Don't let old cultural expectations put a ceiling on your potential. Your engineering brain is quite literally one of the most powerful assets you have. It's time to take off that imaginary hard hat, look at the booming sectors all around you, and start building the future, whatever industry that happens to be in. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this empowers you to look at your career with a completely fresh perspective.
Welcome to the quiz section, Fastest Finger Edition.
Please like, share, and subscribe to Master Sense by Faraday, and turn on notifications so you don't miss new and upcoming videos.
Welcome to The Explainer. If you're an engineering graduate in Nigeria and you're sitting there wondering, okay, what comes next? Well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're unpacking a massively impactful career path that, honestly, way too many people overlook. Get ready, because we're going to show you how to take that hard-earned degree and turn it into some serious national impact.
So let's start with the big one. It's that massive question that kind of haunts almost every senior engineering student right before graduation. What is the most natural career route for you? I mean, you spend years crunching incredibly complex numbers, you're studying thermodynamics, mastering structural mechanics. So naturally, you just assume you're going to be chained to a drafting table or staring at CAD software for the next 10 years, right? It's a pretty stressful thought if you're someone who actually craves a bit more dynamic action out in the field. But here's the thing. The actual answer to this question is surprisingly non-traditional. Okay, let's dive into this. The answer? It's project management. Stepping into project management isn't just some random career detour. It is actually the ultimate solution to building an incredible, lucrative career for yourself while literally building the nation of Nigeria at the same time. It's this perfect sweet spot where the hard science of your engineering degree collides with the dynamic, messy reality of the real world.
To really grasp why this is such a game changer, we have to look at the big picture, which is Nigeria's massive infrastructure deficit. Now, I know the word deficit usually sounds like bad news, but from a career perspective, this gap is an unprecedented, once-in-a-generation opportunity for anyone who's actually equipped to handle it. The sheer scale of our national demand is just staggering. We critically need new roads to connect our commercial hubs. We need massive housing developments for rapidly growing centers like Lagos. We need stabilized power grids across the entire country. And that's just scratching the surface. Add in telecoms infrastructure, critical oil and gas facilities, life-saving water systems, and all these complex public sector projects. Listen, concrete absolutely does not pour itself, and power grids do not organize themselves. They desperately need engineers who can manage the entire chaotic process from start to finish. To make this transition, you need what we call the project manager's toolbox. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is that as an engineer, you already have the analytical mindset. You inherently know how things work. So now it's really just about layering some critical organizational and leadership skills right over top of that solid technical foundation. Think of your new role as having two distinct but equally vital sides. First, you're the planner. You're out there managing the scope of the whole build, tracking every single penny of the cost, locking down these really rigid schedules, and wrangling contractors to make sure everyone is actually doing their job on time. But simultaneously, you are the protector. You're fiercely defending the project's integrity. That means ensuring top-notch quality, mitigating some incredibly complex risks, and maintaining strict site safety so that absolutely everyone goes home alive at the end of the day. Let's zoom in on a few of the specific day-to-day micro skills you absolutely must master, starting with procurement. This is the strategic process of sourcing, negotiating, and acquiring the essential goods and services you need. In a market like ours, with fluctuating currency and all those unpredictable supply chain hurdles, if you can't strategically acquire the right materials at the exact right price, the whole project just grinds to a halt. It's a vital engine that keeps everything moving forward. But hey, buying materials is just one piece of the puzzle. You also need to master budgeting and reporting. And this is exactly where your quantitative engineering brain truly shines. Tracking the money meticulously and communicating your progress through rigorous reporting, that builds instant trust with clients and stakeholders. Without it, honestly, whether you're dealing with private investors or big government funds, you're going to lose credibility incredibly fast. And then, of course, we have the human and legal elements, contract administration and stakeholder management. Look, you could pour the most perfect foundation in the world, but if you haven't managed relations with the local host community, like, say, navigating the complex community dynamics down in the Niger Delta,
Or if the contract wasn't administered perfectly, your site could literally be shut down tomorrow. You really have to be an engineer of people and agreements too. So you've got this amazing toolbox of skills all packed up and ready to go. Now let's look at the industry landscape. Where are the actual jobs right now? Well, the breadth of hiring sectors is fantastic, and it goes way, way beyond just civil engineering. While construction is an obvious avenue for sure, there is massive demand in lucrative oil and gas services, expanding power projects, and rolling out telecommunications networks nationwide. Whether you're an electrical, mechanical, or chemical engineer, you are desperately needed to manage operations in manufacturing expansion or to lead these really vital large-scale donor-funded infrastructure programs. The opportunities are just everywhere. Knowing where the jobs are is great, right? But how do you actually stand out and get hired in these ultra-competitive sectors? And this brilliantly illustrates the final phase of your career roadmap. It ultimately comes down to a classic professional debate: certifications versus experience. You've got what I like to call the alphabet soup of popular project management certifications. PMP, Prince2, Agile, Scrum, Lean Six Sigma. It honestly sounds like a secret code sometimes. And yes, absolutely, having those acronyms on your CV certainly helps get your foot in the door. But the surprising, undeniable truth drawn straight from the industry: real project exposure remains your absolute strongest credential. Getting your hands dirty, solving actual on-site problems, weathering real-world project delays, that is what top employers in Nigeria are truly looking for. When it comes down to it, experience is king. Which brings us to our final defining question. Nigeria is building its future right now. Brick by brick, tower by tower, megawatt by megawatt. Will you be the one managing it? As an engineering graduate, you already have the foundational technical knowledge. You just need to step up, grab that project manager's toolbox, and start leading. I really hope this explainer has shown you just how crucial and honestly how exciting this career path can be. Take that first step, go get that real project exposure, and start building your future today. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, and as always, stay curious.
Welcome to the quiz section, Fastest Finger Edition.
Welcome to today's explainer. I am incredibly excited to have you here because we are about to unpack something that could literally redefine your career trajectory. Right now, there are millions, and I mean millions, of data and AI roles sitting totally empty globally. Why? Companies simply can't find the talent. It is a massive, massive gap. So if you're sitting there right now with an engineering degree, or maybe you're working on one, and you're wondering how to make the absolute biggest impact in today's wild job market, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're zeroing in on bridging traditional engineering with the incredibly dynamic world of data intelligence. We're going to reveal the hidden superpower of your degree and show you exactly why that brutal training you've already survived has secretly been prepping you for the most sought-after jobs in the modern economy.
I want you to think about this for a second. What if your engineering degree is actually the ultimate cheat code for a career in AI? Now, so many grads today feel this intense, crazy pressure to pivot, right? You look at the market, you see the massive explosion of artificial intelligence and data science, and it's super easy to assume you got to start totally from scratch to land one of those high-impact, future-proof jobs. It's a really frustrating feeling for sure, but the truth we're uncovering today: the bridge between your traditional engineering background and these cutting-edge data roles is way shorter than you think. Honestly, you aren't starting at zero. You are actually starting right near the finish line.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1. the data-driven world and the global demand for data intelligence. So first things first, we really need to set the stage and grasp the sheer, mind-boggling scale of the global data boom. Data is now central to all decision-making. We've got to shift our mindset here. For the longest time, there was this misconception that data analysis, data science, AI, that it was all an exclusive club. We thought it was just for the giant tech companies or Silicon Valley startups. But that reality, completely gone. Today, data is the core engine of modern business. I mean, every single strategic move a company makes, every operational pivot, every financial forecast, it is all driven by data. If an organization wants to survive and thrive today, they absolutely cannot rely on gut feelings anymore. They have to rely on data intelligence. And to really wrap our heads around the scale of this, we just have to look at the foundational pillars of our global infrastructure. We're talking banking, telecoms, FinTech, oil and gas, logistics, retail, healthcare, education. Yes, even the government realizes they can't run on guesswork anymore. These aren't just niche sectors, folks. The rapid-fire reality is that a hospital needs data just as desperately as a bank does. A logistics company moving physical boxes relies on data just as heavily as a FinTech startup moving digital cash. The massive scale of opportunity here is absolutely breathtaking, because the demand for data pros isn't isolated. It is literally everywhere. In all of these industries, they are actively hunting for people who can actually make sense of their information.
Which brings us directly to you. Section 2, the engineer's unfair advantage. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how we unlock your latent potential. Because when you look at those super intimidating fields of data science and AI, you might actually be shocked to learn that they are built on the exact foundation you already possess. Seriously, think about the engineering training you've already conquered. Mathematics, modeling, statistics, simulation, and just pure logical reasoning. You have been rigorously trained to look at massive, complex systems, break them down, simulate outcomes, and apply strict logic. Now here's the secret. Those aren't just engineering skills. Those are the exact foundational requirements for data analysts, business intelligence pros, risk analysts, and AI developers. Think about it. A data scientist uses the math and stats you already know to build models. An AI analyst uses your logical reasoning and simulation skills to train algorithms. You already speak the language. The engineering advantage is incredibly real, and it is a total game changer. So, if you already have the foundational logic hardwired into your brain, what's missing? Well, just this specific instruments. Section 3, Unlocking the Data Toolkit. We are going to completely demystify the tools you need for this upskilling. The barrier to entry here is so much lower than people assume, and honestly, these software tools are highly accessible. They are no longer this mysterious black box. Let's methodically build up your confidence and look at this highly logical progression step by step. Step 1 is all about foundations. You start with accessible tools like Excel, apply those statistics you already know, and learn the principles of data visualization. You're just getting comfortable organizing things. Then you step up to Step 2, querying and scripting. Now for an engineer, think of SQL as your heavy-duty extraction tool. It pulls exactly what you need out of massive databases. And Python, that's your versatile scripting engine, letting you manipulate and process that material at scale. You're literally taking your engineering logic and applying it straight to code. Finally, Step 3, advanced concepts. You take everything you've learned, plug it into powerful visualization software like Tableau or Power BI, and start exploring basic machine learning. See? No magic involved. It's a completely achievable, logical progression from basic data handling straight through to advanced AI concepts.
Let's move on and see how this builds into something deeply practical. Section 4, Real-World Problem Solving and Impact in Nigeria.
We're going to look specifically at the massive impact you can have in localized markets, like right here in Nigeria. When you take your hardcore engineering logic and mash it up with those data tools we just talked about, you suddenly become the answer to very specific, highly pressing corporate goals. In Nigeria, for example, maybe it's a bustling logistics firm trying to route delivery trucks through notorious Lagos traffic to radically reduce waste. Or maybe it's a FinTech startup that desperately needs to detect fraud before it completely tanks their bottom line. These are real, tangible problems. Companies are scrambling to truly understand their customers, to accurately forecast demand so they don't get caught off guard, and to massively improve their overall efficiency. When you master data competence, you transition in a flash from being just another graduate hunting for a job to being an active, highly targeted problem solver. You become the person who can walk into a company, point at their data, and say exactly how to stop bleeding money and start operating better.
And that crucial point is captured absolutely perfectly in this quote pulled straight from our source material. Data competence can turn an engineering graduate into a highly employable problem solver. Really, this is the climax of everything we have been talking about today. This is the ultimate transformation. It's not about throwing away your engineering degree. Actually, scratch that. It's about weaponizing it. You take that rigorous, unparalleled mathematical and logical foundation you worked so hard for, you pair it with the data competence that modern industries are practically begging for right now, and you transform yourself into a highly employable asset. You aren't just an engineer anymore. You're an engineer who can essentially see the future through data.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to wrap up our explainer today. You survived the intense math, the modeling, the endless simulations. You have already done the absolute hardest part of the journey. The bridge is already built. You have the logic. So are you ready to learn the tools? The opportunity out there is massive, and it's just waiting for you to cross over. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I truly hope you leave today feeling empowered to take that very next step.
Welcome to the quiz section, Fastest Finger Edition.
Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're looking at architecting Nigeria's digital frontier, and specifically, tech roles for non-engineers. Let's get right into it.
Now, if you're sitting there without a traditional computer science degree, you're probably asking yourself, can I actually thrive in tech? Well, absolutely, yes. The modern tech landscape, it doesn't just tolerate diverse backgrounds, it literally requires them to solve complex problems.
Okay, let's dive into this. Nigeria's digital economy is booming. It is scaling at a massive rate. In fact, get this, tech is actually contributing more to Nigeria's GDP than the oil and gas sector right now. We are talking about a massive structural economic shift. Tech companies are just growing way faster than traditional universities can even churn out computer science graduates. And what does that do? It creates this absolute vacuum, a huge demand for diverse talent. Just think about the sectors driving this explosion. You've got FinTech, e-commerce, digital banking, logistics platforms, health technology, education technology, and enterprise software. FinTech and digital banking alone are completely rewriting how money moves across the continent. E-commerce and logistics, they're totally overhauling supply chains. And meanwhile, health tech, ed tech, enterprise software, they're all stepping up to solve these really critical infrastructure gaps. And the kicker? Every single one of these sectors needs massive, cross-functional tech teams just to survive and scale.
So, if they aren't strictly demanding an engineering degree, what exactly do they want? Well, the source material makes this beautifully clear. The core requirement is that they need people who can think logically and build reliable systems. That's it. Whether your background is in biology or literature or, business administration, if you can systematically break down a problem and construct a logical solution, you've got the fundamental DNA for tech.
Think of this as your personal hero's journey into the digital economy. Step 1, you graduate with your non-computer background. Step 2 is the bridge. This is where you acquire highly practical coding and digital product skills. Think boot camps, self-study, that sort of thing. And then step 3, you actually switch to a tech role. It's a very straightforward, proven pipeline.
Let's move on and look at the actual roles you can target.
Once you acquire those practical skills, what does your job title actually become? Let's take a look.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer variety of roles you can go for. Over on the development side, you could pivot straight into being a software developer, a web developer, or building mobile apps. If you're more into operations and support, there's cloud support and DevOps. Or hey, maybe you have a super keen eye for detail. Then you can target analysis and testing roles, like becoming a systems analyst, a cybersecurity analyst, or a quality assurance tester. These are highly respected, incredibly sought after, and best of all, completely attainable jobs.
But here is a multi-million naira question, right? How do you actually convince a hiring manager to give you one of these roles when you don't have that traditional degree? Well, that brings us to the ultimate secret of getting hired in Nigeria's modern tech ecosystem. Because there has been a huge fundamental shift in how these companies evaluate candidates today.
And this brilliantly illustrates the new hiring contrast. On one side, you have the old standard, certificates, basically relying entirely on a piece of paper to prove what course you've completed. But on the flip side, you have the new gold standard, a portfolio of projects. This is tangible, working proof of what you can actually build. In today's market, a portfolio speaks just exponentially louder than any certificate ever could.
In fact, our source material sums this up perfectly, stating, employers want to see what a candidate can build, not only what course he or she has completed. It is literally that empowering. You don't need a university's permission anymore. You just need to solve a problem, write the code, and show it directly to an employer as undeniable proof of your value.
So, as you can see, Nigeria's booming digital economy absolutely has a place for you. From software development and web design to system analysis, these roles are just waiting to be filled. And a strong portfolio is your absolute key to unlocking them. So I want to leave you with one simple question to chew on. What are you going to build first? Because the very moment you start building, you start architecting your own place in the digital frontier. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.
Welcome to the quiz section, Fastest Finger Edition.
Welcome to this explainer. If you've spent the last few years agonizing over complex systems, heavy math, and technical frameworks, you're probably sitting there wondering, okay, where do I actually fit into today's crazy, fast-paced tech landscape? Well, we are going to dive right into an absolutely incredible opportunity for engineering graduates in Nigeria. We're mapping out a highly rewarding career path that takes literally everything you've learned and weaponizes it for the digital economy. We're talking about the jump from pure engineering into strategic product management.
So let's just kick things off with a tough but honestly necessary question about your career survival. Is an engineering degree still enough in today's rapidly changing economy? Look, you've got the certificate, right? It proves you can do the hard math. It proves you understand deep technical theory. But the economy, it isn't static. It's constantly shifting, and the roles from even just 10 years ago are totally transforming. Your degree proves you have the foundation, for sure. But the modern market, it's demanding a lot more than just knowing the technical stuff. It's demanding the ability to actually apply that knowledge strategically.
Which brings us to part 1 of our explainer, the product management boom.
There is just a massive explosion of industries actively hunting for strategic minds to guide their products. And we're not just talking about software companies operating in a vacuum here. Product management is becoming incredibly attractive across Nigeria's FinTech sector, managing how everyday people move their money. but it's also booming in telecoms, e-commerce, and logistics. It's completely reshaping mobility, edtech, and agritech. Every single one of these sectors is trying to digitize and scale up. And to do that, they don't just need people who can write code. They desperately need people who can steer the ship. They need product managers. Okay, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's lock down exactly what this role is and why it's basically the heartbeat of all those booming tech sectors. A product manager is the person who essentially sits right at the center of the storm. Your job is to figure out user problems, like what is the customer actually struggling with on a daily basis. Then you define the features that will solve those exact problems. You have to ruthlessly prioritize improvements because, let's face it, time and resources are always limited. You coordinate the technical teams to actually build the thing, and ultimately your main responsibility is to make sure the product delivers real, tangible value to the customers. It is a highly dynamic, super high-impact role. All right, moving on to part 2, the engineering advantage. Here is the absolute game changer. Your engineering background allows you to perfectly bridge the communication gap between the developers and the business leaders. Think of a product manager as a literal bridge. On one side, you've got the technical folks, your developers and designers. On the other side, the execution folks, operations and business leaders. Now, most people only speak one of these languages, right? Business leaders push for features without really getting the technical constraints, while developers might focus on building something technically beautiful without seeing the urgent business need. But engineers, you guys succeed in product management because you already get the technical constraints. You can look a developer in the eye, speak their language, and then turn right around and translate that reality into a winning strategy for the business side. And this perfectly highlights why your disciplined, analytical engineering mind is such a huge asset when navigating Nigeria's highly specific market challenges. We're talking about massive hurdles here: affordability, trust, infrastructure gaps, user education. These are all affecting product adoption right now. You simply cannot just copy and paste an app from Silicon Valley and expect it to work here. So how do we solve this? Well, with engineering discipline, system logic, and deep technical understanding. If an app needs to work on a low-bandwidth network because of infrastructure gaps, an engineer-turned-PM knows exactly how to prioritize lightweight technical features. When user trust is low, your system's logic ensures the security features are absolutely flawless. Your engineering brain is literally wired to break down these exact types of complex puzzles. So let's get into the execution in part 3. Building your proof. If you're the kind of grad who just loves untangling logic and system frameworks, this career path is a super practical way to stay relevant. Really, ask yourself if this sounds like you. Do you enjoy logic? Do you like looking at complex systems and figuring out exactly how all the pieces fit together? Are you fascinated by user problems and using digital tools to solve them? If you're nodding your head right now, then product management offers you a brilliant way to thrive. But, and this is a big but, you actually have to prove you can do it. Because you just can't rely solely on a piece of paper anymore. You have to build tangible proof of your skills. You make yourself undeniably hireable by building real projects from scratch. You need to compile a portfolio that visually shows off your thought process. Go build dashboards that track mock data. Or maybe design clickable prototypes to show how a user would actually interact with your solution. You should be writing up product case studies that detail exactly how you found a user problem, prioritize the features, and built a solution. This is how you show a hiring manager what you can actually do out in the real world. In fact, there's a quote from the source material that perfectly hits the nail on the head. It says, "The key is to build proof through projects, portfolios, dashboards, prototypes, or product case studies, rather than relying only on the degree certificate." Your engineering degree is a fantastic foundation. It absolutely proves your discipline and your intelligence. But honestly, the degree is just the beginning of the conversation. The portfolio is what finishes it. So, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought as you step out to conquer Nigeria's tech ecosystem. Your degree shows what you studied, but what have you built?
If you can combine the deep technical knowledge of your engineering background with the strategic, user-focused mindset of a product manager, and if you can actually prove it with a solid portfolio, there is virtually no limit to the impact you can have in fintech, agritech, e-commerce, and beyond. Go out there, look at the hurdles in the market, apply that engineering logic, and start building your proof today. Thanks for tuning in to this explainer.
Welcome to the quiz section, Fastest Finger Edition.
Please like, share, and subscribe to Master Sense by Faraday, and turn on notifications so you don't miss new and upcoming videos. Drop a comment below and tell us what you'd like to see next.